Hello, everyone. This is Nayiri from Low Carb and Fasting. This episode is part of the series on this channel called Type 1 Diabetics Talk, where both host and guests are Type 1s, and we sit together to discuss, you guessed it, Type 1 diabetes and related topics. Today's guest is someone I've been waiting for a long time to invite to the channel. She's an MHP, so that's a Metabolic Health Practitioner, certified from the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners. She's also certified coach from Insulin IQ. She's, as if that wasn't enough, she's also accredited from Nutrition Network as a Nutrition Network Practitioner. She's completed Dr. Ian Lake's Keto for Type 1 course. I did that recently too. She's an absolute delight. So she's a fellow Type 1 diabetic with a very unique story. I can't wait to start this discussion. Gina Roberts, welcome to Low Carb and Fasting.
Good morning, Nayiri. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this.
Gina, you've just been very busy, right?
Been very busy. It's been a busy year.
You've been very busy, but before your accident, you've been doing all these certifications. Now, I obviously did Ian Lake's, and I'm an MHP like yourself, and that alone was a huge amount of work. It required commitment and dedication and time. How did you find time for all this?
You have to be pretty strict. I set aside a certain amount of time every day just for that. Usually a couple of hours every day. But once you get into it and the more you learn, the more you find out you need to know more. And it just kind of snowballs and everything kind of builds. And, it helps my clients so much and it helps me so much that it's really easy to just keep going. And it's good for my brain too.
Mm-hmm. No, that's absolutely true. In fact, the more you learn, the more you realize how much more there is to learn.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the people that you meet in these groups are so supportive, and you learn from them as well. And so it's a great asset to be able to go in and do all these programs and learn from all these different people.
Yeah. So it's, your tribe, right? People become your sisters, brothers, and the connection is indescribable, right?
Yeah, it's a very strong community. People understand where you come from and what you experience, and that's good for you, for everybody.
Correct. Gina, let's cover your story. Now, you weren't a classic case of latent autoimmune diabetes, right?
No.
In adults. So you were a LADA in that case. You were a juvenile diabetic case like I was. Obviously, I was diagnosed at 5. Yours was a completely different story.
Completely different. I had lupus, SLE, which is an autoimmune disease, which often attacks the organs. And at the age of 40, my pancreas died completely, became necrotic and had to be removed. So I instantly became a type 1 insulin diabetic overnight, and they do still consider me type 1. I don't have the traditional type 1 antibodies, but because of the autoimmune disease, they still consider it type 1. And it's challenging because everything went with the pancreas, including the digestive enzymes. And that's how my treatment and how we look at things is a little bit different that way. But that was when I was the age of 40, which has been 18 years ago now. And 10 years of that, I followed the standard protocol and recommendations by the American Diabetes Association. Got sicker and sicker and sicker. And then 10 years ago, I had a cardiologist step forward and say, you need to go low carb, very low carb. And that changed everything. And so for the last 8 years, I've been low carb. I've lost 155 pounds along the way. I have a normal A1C now, where before I was struggling to get below 7. And my lupus is in remission as long as I stay on the diet. So it's been a godsend for me. It changed everything. And that's when I started my research is, that first week, being very skeptical and thinking, this is crazy. My dietitians all tell me I have to eat, up to 300 carbs a day to stay alive. And then my cardiologist saying, no, you got to get it down. You have to get rid of the inflammation that you're experiencing. And went online and luckily saw Dr. Bernstein's Diabetes University online. And that just changed everything. And once I started studying it, I couldn't stop.
Gina, do you want to give a shout out to this cardiologist? Because he actually deserves a shout out. Who was telling their patients 8 years ago, not now. Now it's more common, I would say, not very common, but more common to see doctors who are advising their patients to adopt a low carbohydrate diet. But 8 years ago, it must have been a taboo back then.
It was. And I think he had a partner that did the South Beach diet, which was a little bit low carb.
Similar, yes.
Educated on keto, but he was educated in, the benefits of low carb. And his name is Dr. Gorman here in Idaho, and he just retired, unfortunately. So now I've got to find somebody else who understands low carb. Might be a challenge. But yeah, he pretty much saved my life by telling me to do that.
Gina, do you need a cardiologist?
I have a history where I did fen-phen back in the day, back in the 90s, and got a little bit of a heart rhythm from that. So I do follow that, and I still have a little bit of hypertension off and on. And so, yeah, I do have a cardiologist for that. But, everything else, most of the medications I've been on for all these years has been discontinued. So, but you need to stay on top of things and do CAC scores and stuff like that, and echoes to make sure the heart stays healthy. Especially, I have other doctors that are concerned about the low carb diet and the higher fat diet that I eat. What is it doing to your heart? So I continue with heart scans, every few years to make sure everything's staying steady and healthy. So I think that's important.
So is everything staying steady and healthy, as you put it, with a keto diet?
It is. Yep. My CAC score, although it's not perfect, is very low, and it's not gone up at all, and everything's staying stable. So that's good.
Right. So with lupus, obviously, lupus does tend to kind of attack the organs. I know that much because my husband also has lupus, and his weaker part is the kidneys. So that's pretty common. Tell us about how you put that into remission.
So when I was first diagnosed and I had the pancreatectomy, I was taking about 20 different medications for the lupus as well. And by the time I learned about low carb, those first couple of weeks, I could start to feel the inflammation start to decrease and not need the pain medications as much. Within a couple of months, we started discontinuing all of them, and my lab markers just kept improving and improving. One thing that I'm very happy about is, like you said, the kidneys. I had some kidney function issues, and was actually on dialysis when they removed my pancreas for a time. And my last 3 kidney function tests are all in the normal range with my eGFR. So all of that has reversed. Everything is normal right now, which is wonderful because I have so many friends who have lost kidneys because of lupus, or had heart problems and other things. And so now we monitor the inflammation markers in that, and everything's staying normal. Where I couldn't walk into the doctor's office hardly before, now I'm really physically active. All that pain, the inflammation goes away. And as long as I keep my diet clean and my blood sugars in a tight range, which is also really important, everything stays good. If for some reason, if I have a pump failure or something, I have a high blood sugar, within 2 days, those inflammatory markers will go back up.
Mm-hmm.
Get it back down, everything settles back down. So all those things work together, and they're really important.
Yeah, I can relate to that, not only as a type 1 diabetic, but from my husband's perspective, because he says, if I deviate from this diet, even for one meal, which he may enjoy at that particular moment, he's going to suffer. He knows and it's just not worth it. So
feel it. I can see it in the joints in my hands within a few hours. It's very telling what the food does.
Correct. Now, Gina, some of us really struggle with a compromised pancreas because we don't produce insulin. But not having a pancreas must be double the challenge, if not triple. Tell us about, what does that feel like? I mean, to be honest, you're the first person I've met who doesn't have a pancreas. So how does that work?
So you lose all of your pancreatic enzymes.
Right.
And of course you can't make insulin. So when I woke up, they were giving me insulin, and I said, I'm not diabetic. And they said, well, yeah, you are now. And explained it. And I'm like, okay. But then they give you pancreatic enzymes that you eat every time you have food to replace what the pancreas was producing. And it's like the amylase, the lipase, and the protease that you would be getting. And so with each meal, you eat that. And on a standard diet, it kind of works, but there's still a lot of really bad GI issues and diarrhea and stuff that comes along with it. That's another thing that changed with the diet by lowering the carbs and the inflammation coming down. All of that calmed down and improved as well. And absorbing of all the nutrients also improved. And you could see it in lab work. So digestive timing is a big thing for people. Some people who lose their pancreas end up doing pancreatic transplants or islet cell transplants. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But that can lead to years and years on other medications to try and manage that. So I've just opted to not. My blood glucose control is so good, and I feel good enough that I'm just going to stick with what works for now.
Mm-hmm. In fact, people who have pancreas also, like type 1 diabetic, people who've been type 1 diabetic for a long time, I can't remember the correct percentage, but it's like 17-18% of type 1s also have pancreatic enzyme deficiency or insufficiency. And so that's pretty common. I think, are you taking a strong dose of, I think the brand name is Creon, right?
Mm-hmm.
What they're giving you, right?
It's exactly what I take. And I find a lot of type 1s that I talk to also have issues with digestive timing and stuff because of neuropathy, and that they might not be, getting the nutrients they need, also because that's off. And sometimes their doctors will look at the exogenous enzymes to see if that helps keep things moving and absorbing the nutrients better. sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Gastroparesis, right?
gastroparesis.
Because that's, I was actually surprised. I first read about it in Dr. Bernstein's Diabetes Solution. I thought, blimey, there's a whole chapter in here.
Yeah,
There's a whole chapter about this condition. I never even heard of it.
it's very serious, and it can be deadly for type 1s too. And part of that comes from elevated blood sugars for years and years and years, damaging, the nerves and the capillaries and all of that. And so that's, I've learned through this process that the most important thing is to keep those blood sugars steady so that the vascular system and the nerves stay healthy, because we need that for the long term. Prevent those complications that come with type 1.
Right. Talking about digestive enzymes, Gina. So the what you're taking is basically helping you break down the fats, right?
And proteins, yeah.
And protein as well. Do they have protein breakdown? Right.
Yeah.
It was only for carbs or fat.
Yeah.
They help.
I think it helps with everything.
Right.
And I'm not sure the exact breakdown. I know that I can't go without them or I can. So, there's two things I can't live without, and that's insulin and the creon right now.
Right.
So, yeah. But I can do pretty well with that.
Yes. I mean, there's a solution, right?
There is.
Wow. Gina, okay, so you don't have pancreas, so you're not producing any glucagon either.
No, I'm not.
So, right. I mean, that's a challenge, right?
It is. And I've had a lot of doctors speculate if that's beneficial or not beneficial over the years. I actually, for 3 years after they removed my pancreas, I didn't have any emergency glucagon. And I switched doctors, and he said, "You don't produce glucagon." I said, "No." He says, "Why don't you have an emergency backup for that? Because you need that." And so I carry that with me everywhere I go, but I've never had to use it, thank goodness. And I heard, I had doctors speculate that that's partly why my blood sugars can stay so steady. My standard deviation is so steady. And other doctors disagree. So I don't have a, real answer as to whether it's beneficial or not. But yeah, I don't have that either. I was talking with a couple of pediatric endocrinologists about it, and they think there's some glucagon that comes from the gut, but it's minimal. So, but it's not very well documented.
I can see how it can be a double-edged sword, right? It depends which angle you look at it from.
Opposite of it.
Some of us are actually battling the constant glucagon release. It's like, come on, it's not even synchronized with insulin, obviously, because the message isn't there. So it's a constant battle with glucagon. At least that's one thing you don't have to deal with. However, in emergency situations, you don't have that.
I don't have any of that. Yeah. Yep. So it's a balance.
It's good, I think, to have glucagon, to carry glucagon with you. So what else do you do? So how do you correct your hypos?
My hypos are never very severe. I carry dextrose tablets.
Yes.
And I'll take those, and it usually brings me up. Occasionally, if I miscalculate a meal or something, or my pump gives me too much insulin for some reason, I'll take 2 or 3 maybe. But, it's not like before I changed my diet where I was grabbing juice boxes and sucking them down and eating everything inside. I don't do that anymore. It's a very minimal change, and it usually brings me up, quickly, and I don't overshoot, which is really nice. Because I don't like that roller coaster feeling of the ups and downs at all.
That's a nightmare. I've been there.
I don't miss it. I
Yeah.
don't miss
Yeah. I used to run to the fridge and just literally like empty everything inside jars of jam, or because you can't stop yourself when you're crashing and crashing fast.
fast.
That's quite
Because
traumatic.
work usually, and and following Bernstein's, loss of small numbers, if you're eating a small amount of carbs, you're never taking a huge amount of insulin. And so it's so much easier to correct and stay within range.
Correct. I completely agree. Gina, so what are you taking? You mentioned the pump already.
I wear the Omnipod pump and I wear a CGM.
Right.
So
So the tubeless Omnipod, right? Yeah. We have the same one. And which Dexcom, or is it the
G7.
G7, right?
Mm-hmm.
How
Yep.
is that working for you?
Works really well for me.
Mm,
First day, it's not very good, but that's typical with most people. That first day where it's trying to calibrate and get into sync, but then it does really good. I teach a little bit about CGM use with clients in different groups. I find if I calibrate or if I start mine when I've been fasted overnight and my blood sugar is steady at that time, then everything stays synced and it comes up really steady and stays steady. If I try and start at one when it's going up and down, then I have a lot harder time with it. But I really like it. And you learn so much from it. I wish everybody could wear one at least just once, because you learn so much about yourself and how every food, every emotion, every physical activity impacts what you do with your blood sugars. I think it's really important for everybody to understand.
it's the greatest, for me, it's been the greatest teaching tool, my CGM. I could live without my pump on manual injections. I couldn't give up my CGM. It's been life-changing.
Yeah.
I put out a post on Facebook recently because I calculated how many CGMs I've used so far. It was 238 or something. So
That's a
people learn so much from one.
How many I've had? I've worn mine since 2008. I've worn one. I started with the Guardian systems with Medtronic. Because I have I don't know if this is because the pancreas is gone, but I have hypo unawareness. So I don't feel my lows coming on.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've always had me with the CGM. And that's a long time doing the CGM. But they are really important. I think one thing, though, with the CGM, even though I wore one for so long, I could see the ups and downs. But it wasn't until I went low carb that I really understood that I could control that better myself and that it was okay to stay in that tight range. Education needs to come along with it.
You need all the tools available. I mean, I'm grateful for my pump as well. Between my pump and my CGM and the right knowledge and the right way to correct a hypo instead of just eating tons of carbs and then not knowing where you are and what you've done and how soon that's going to take effect. So once you remove all the erratic and random sort of measures, everything becomes more predictable. Do you agree?
Much more predictable and much less stressful.
Less stressful.
I feel like I got the majority of my life back once the blood sugar is steady, because I spent so much time every day managing all the highs and lows before, and just the constant stress. I never felt good. It was always on my mind. Just kind of a panic all the time, making sure I was getting everything right. And I noticed that once things steadied out, I would go half a day and not even have to think about my blood sugars, because I knew they were steady and it was fine. And I'd peak once in a while and it's fine. It's like, okay, we're good. Keep going. Yeah. And what a relief.
Gina, are you using your Omnipod on the manual mode or the auto mode?
I am manual.
Manual, right? Yeah, I do too. I do too.
I've tried the Omnipod 5. The range wasn't low enough for me. It was still too high. And although I love my Dexcom, it's not perfect. And it can't keep up with me because I'll have parts of my day which I'm really sedentary, and then parts of my day where I'm really active. And I do better controlling it manually on my own than the automated system does. So for now, I'm sticking automated, or not automated, just manual. My timing range right now runs around 90% all the time. So I just haven't found a reason to switch yet.
Yeah, I gave up on it. I think by the third day, I knew it wasn't for me.
Me too.
And then I went back to it. I thought, okay, I'll give it another chance. But the second day, I decided that's it. It's not for me. I'm not using this again. It's understandable why the algorithm is set to keep people higher, because obviously they don't want to overshoot you with insulin.
And I can definitely see using it with kids and stuff who aren't paying as much attention to it, and the parents are watching. I definitely think there's a place for it where it's very helpful.
It does work. I think, I've seen it work with some type 1s who are carb loading. So for them, it's a life changer, right? Because they're eating the carbs, so they're happy. If they're running at 140 all day long, they're happy with that. But for those of us who prefer a tighter range or a lower range, it just doesn't do the job. I wish it did, but it just doesn't do it. So yes, I'm pleased to hear that I'm not the only crazy one using an Omnipod.
And there's some new pumps coming out that they say will go down as low as an average of 85 mg per deciliter, which would be a normal range. So I'm curious to see how those do.
Yeah, I'm excited about the new technology too. But until then, manual works for me. I'm really happy. Gina, tell us about your diet. You mentioned keto. What kind of keto? Because there are so many different versions of it, right? So what kind of keto do you do?
I basically follow Stephen Finney and Jeff Oleg's well-formulated keto. I will cycle in and out of carnivore once in a while if I have some inflammation, because that calms it right down. But I pretty much eat animal protein and low-carb vegetables, put in a little bit of fat, and I'm good. And I tested my ketones this morning, which I don't normally do. I run a nutritional ketosis almost all the time, so I'm between 0.5 to maybe 1.5 almost all the time. And I feel great. When I lose that is when I find I get lupus flares, is if I drop out of that. So for me, I do the, kind of the medical ketosis, where it's very beneficial for the autoimmune part of what I deal with. And it's not just about having ketone numbers or anything like that. I do benefit from having those numbers up a little higher. And I don't eat exorbitant amounts of fat like some people do. I don't eat the keto packaged foods from the stores and stuff like that. It's pretty much a whole food diet.
So what does that look like?
Looks like a piece of steak and maybe, some steamed veggies on plate. Last night we had a pot roast with turnips and onion and a few little carrots, not too many, just very simple. And it's probably healthier than most people eat. I have vegetarian and vegan clients who come to me and they don't know how to eat whole food. So everything's coming in a package and it's highly processed. And one of the fun things I do is teach people how to eat real food again and how to recognize it and how to get feeling better when you eat it that way.
I think in general, if people did that, we would be a much healthier society. If you could just remove the, half of the boxes from people's pantries, be better.
Yep.
We still won't solve all metabolic health problems, but I know it. I mean, my blood sugars were still all over the place when I made bread at home, and I can't have the supermarket bread because that's exactly why my blood sugars are like all over the place.
Yep.
What was I thinking? I thought I'm going to keep it healthy. I'm not buying the vegetables, from the supermarket. I'm going to grow them in the garden. And of course, none of that helped because I was still eating carbs.
Yep.
So who were the people that influenced kind of you that on the right track?
So Bernstein, Artie Dykman, who started the university YouTube channel. And then I came across Dr. Ian Lake, and I'm trying to think of who else. Troy Stapleton was another one. Those three right in that first month, when I thought it was crazy to try low carb, and then to see these other doctors who were diagnosed later in life as well, it, and I could see it was safe, and I could see their results, gave me the confidence to keep going. And then through them, I started seeing other people who were doing it, and it was a relief to know that there was a better way, and to see all the good, happy stories that came from other people that were doing it. And it's like, wow, why aren't we taught this from the very beginning? Because it's so good, and people are so much healthier this way.
For anyone watching us now, obviously this isn't live streaming, but for anyone watching this, some of the people that Gina just mentioned, I've interviewed them before, so I'll put the links below so you can watch my interview with Dr. Troy Stapleton and, of course, Artie Dykman. I've invited him twice to this channel. And Dr. Ian Lake has been here twice as part of this series. Talking of Dr. Lake, I remember he was doing a presentation on the keto diet at an event in London where I met him in person for the first time. I think it was called Keto Fest. So during that presentation, he put a slide up, and it was a lady's feet. Couldn't see her face. It was ladies' but kind of lower feet, right? Swollen, unhealthy looking legs and feet. And he said, if this lady did not start the ketogenic diet, her legs would have been amputated. I remember the image. I remember his exact words. I remember the impact it had on me and on everyone. I mean, you could just basically look at people's faces and they were like, whoa, so does keto do that? It saved this lady from amputation.
And those were legs.
That was you. That was you, Gina. Tell us about that.
I had vasculitis in my legs, very swollen. I had blood coming to the surface. But now I was very close to having ulcerations, and nothing I was doing was helping. Very painful, and I knew I was in trouble. Blood sugars were always in the 200s, always. And that's part of the reason why the cardiologist sat me down and said, we've got to get rid of this inflammation. And yeah, that's all cleared up. I have a few scars left over from that. But, about 6 months in to the diet, I was sitting outside with my daughter, and she looked at me and she says, Mom, your legs are normal in color again. Do you realize that? And I was like, yeah, pretty cool, huh? That can heal. And I didn't think that would ever go away. And so that's part of my motivation is I know that if I don't eat well, I know if I don't control those blood sugars, the amputation is reality, that it could happen, and it can happen fast. Yeah, it's scary. I wish everybody could understand that and believe that they can manage their diabetes to prevent those types of complications. But yeah, it's been it was a huge change, big change.
Right. I remember that image, and I kind of part of me wanted to invite you right there and then to my channel, and I've been following you since then, actually. So that was the first time I heard of you
Yeah.
from Dr. Ian Lake. Gina, so obviously with 68 kilogram or 70 kilogram weight loss,
Mhm.
you turned from a sedentary person to an active person. You actually have a pretty active life. What do you do?
So I coach, but in the winter times, I am a snowmobile test rider up in the mountains. I take new products and go put lots and lots of miles on it up in the beautiful snowy mountains all winter. So, and I couldn't have done that before. I would still go ride with people. I'd get invited, I could go, but it was very short-lived and I couldn't tolerate it very well. It was really hard for me, but now we go all day, and my blood sugars I can keep steady too. And I've learned how to do that with high elevations, and it's much easier than it would have been otherwise.
And that's physically demanding, right?
Yeah, it is. And you have to learn how to, change your bolus settings or your basal settings, and that to keep, blood sugar steady. But it's not as hard as it would have been before, for sure. And one of the things with the CGM and that is really important for me, and I try and teach my clients, is get to know yourself really well. Know what your insulin sensitivity is.
Yes.
And know how activity is going to impact that, so that you can keep yourself in a safe range at all times, because it's really important.
What's your current range?
Right now it's 65 to 130, which I think is between like 4 to 7 millimolar.
Yeah, a little lower than 4, and 4 to 7.
My average, like for the last 90 days, I think my average glucose has been like 105, which is a little higher. I had some knee surgery recently, so I'm staying a little bit higher. Usually I'm in the 90s, but I'll take 105 right now post knee surgery. So I think that's pretty good considering. And my timing range is still in the 90s, even with that. So I'm pleased with that.
Gina, we talked back in, I think, so we're recording this in November, but we talked back in the summer, and you were going to come to my channel. Then you had this accident. Was that your leg or arm?
That was my arm.
What was your arm?
I broke my arm in a snowmobile accident in February. I had to quit work, and the lupus did a lot of damage to my knees over the years before I changed my diet. So I decided while I was down with the arm, we'd fix the knee. So went ahead and did that. But it did really well. And something I learned through the process is the orthopedics doctor told me they won't operate on anybody with an A1C over 7 because the capillaries are compromised, your blood flow, you don't heal well, and infection is too high. And so there's a lot of people who can't have surgeries that they need because their blood sugars are just too high. And lucky for me, I have a normal A1C, and so it wasn't an issue. And I healed really well, and I didn't have the inflammation that most people suffer. So that was really good. It's another thing I was really grateful I had good control of those blood sugars for doing that.
Absolutely. So that was the knee surgery. How about your arm? What happened to it?
We were cast for a long time, lots of physical therapy. They thought I might have to have surgery, but through physical therapy, it's healed enough that I'm back to work. I can strong. Everything's doing good. There's a lot of inflammation that comes when you fracture bone. I had to adjust my basal up for about a month.
Mm-hmm.
Made me a little cranky, just the thought of it, but had to keep my blood sugar steady and in range. But then it came back in. Once the inflammation comes down, then those blood sugars come down, and yeah, it's much better.
Well, you're thriving, Gina. I mean, despite everything that's happened to you, you're thriving. And if that's not down to the diet, I don't know what. I mean, it's possible to witness this kind of recovery and healing with
Yeah.
anyone who's just eating anything.
Yeah. And I have Dr. Wellington from Nutrition Network.
Oh, right, yes.
In a lecture one day, he said he's a diabetologist, and he was talking about the management of diabetes. And he said, 80% of managing diabetes is what you eat. 5% is medication, and 15% of it's the monitoring. And it really stuck with me because it's very true. It's like what we put in our mouth determines what happens with our blood sugars for a huge extent. And I truly believe that. And I see that with my clients. If I can get them to see that too, that's when things start to turn around for them and things get steady. And they call me and say, I can't believe I've been in range all day. Why did nobody tell me this before? But we know now, so we just move forward.
Gina, I'm going to come back to the pancreas, or the lack thereof, as it is in your case. Okay, so if you do fasting, does it mean that you're probably more likely to have steady blood sugars because you don't have the glucagon release, so you don't need extra insulin for that morning rises? Or, I mean, how does that happen? I'm really interested. What happens if someone is not releasing glucagon?
So I try and finish eating at the end of the day by about 3 hours before bedtime, usually by 7 or 8 p.m. And I don't eat again until noon the next day. Every day I do intermittent fasting. I see a slight rise in the morning, but I don't get the big spikes like other people do. It'll go up, maybe 10 points. Like if I wake up and I'm at 80, it might go up to 90, 95, and then I just get busy and it comes back down. So it does stay pretty steady. If I get really active, or if something happens and I get a big adrenaline spike, yeah, that changes things. Then it will go up, but it will stay pretty steady. But I try and test my basal often too, which helps with that.
Right, basal testing. Yes, it's very important. So do you take insulin for protein and the fat component of the meal?
I do. I use our insulin.
Right. That's interesting. You're using our insulin.
My pump is my basal.
Right.
And if I eat carbs, or if I find I'm higher at the beginning of the meal than I want to be, then I'll use some Humalog from the pump. But most of the meal I use R, and that's injected. That's a manual injection. And it works better because, instead of coming out of your system in 4 hours, I get 6 to 8 hours for that digestion. It just times out perfectly. It stays nice and steady. I really like it. That's one of the best things I think I learned from Bernstein.
Right.
Yeah.
I tried it and I found it because I couldn't find my right dosing, like the right dose and the right timing.
Yeah. And different
proteins. Doing this on a manual on the pump, I'm already managing pretty well the protein and the fat rises, so I don't need to waste my time on this.
And if I don't have R, I'll do an extended bolus.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually microdose myself instead of the extended, like literally watch where my blood sugars are going. And usually it's just three more boluses over a period of 6 hours, as long as I'm monitoring.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I've covered the meal. But that also means I can't eat later in the night, because at night I'm not going to wake up and take that extra dose, right? So
Exactly.
that's where
And
our insulin comes in handy.
yeah, and the art can be challenging because different proteins will digest differently at different times.
Correct.
So it takes practice.
Correct. So who's looking after you at the moment? You have your cardiologist. You have
An endocrinologist.
right?
Yeah. And,
That's about it.
and they pretty much, I come in and they say, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing.
Yeah.
Because my A1C is normal, everything's looking good. And they write my prescriptions and I see them again in 6 months. So right now, everything's really good that way.
So between your cardiologist and the endo and the general practitioner as well, or that?
Yeah, and he just retired also. He's a carnivore and low carb.
Oh, wow.
I've lost both my low carb doctors within the last 3 months. So it's going to be a challenge, but I'm sure it'll work out.
So it's pretty popular then, low carb or carnivore in Idaho, right? You're in Idaho.
There's a few here. I think I lucked out and got like the only 2 doctors that really understood it. Everybody else is like, no, you can't do that. But at first, the endocrinologists were really worried, and the diabetes educator was probably the most worried. And every time I go in, she'd say, your A1C is only 5. You must be having hypos all the time.
Yeah.
And that's where the CGM data comes in handy, because I can say, no, look at the CGM. There's no sucralose on this. And they kind of be confused because they don't see it very often, that it's that steady. And they're like, well, if you're not having lows, you must be fine. So they let me go. And it's, I've had a normal A1C for 8 years now doing this.
That's
and so now they know there's more to it. It's not a fad diet. This works. And I think they're seeing more people come in, more, other type 1s. I've heard of a few here locally that are doing the same thing. So I'm glad to see that, more people are seeing it.
Talking of A1Cs and the CGM data, I think CGM data overall is a much better marker of or reflection of someone's health or management than just the A1C number. I'm not saying A1C is not relevant. Obviously, it is still a good and easy measurement.
Yeah.
But if someone is wearing a CGM, I'm not even interested in what their A1C says. If I can access the CGM data, that's all I need to see.
Yeah. And if I have a client, they have a normal A1C, but they eat something and their blood sugar goes up to 250 and doesn't come down for 3 hours, I know they're insulin resistant. I know there's a problem there. And that A1C won't reflect that, but the CGM shows it. So it's very important to know.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you see people kind of commenting that, hey, even non-diabetics have all these blood sugar rises, like rising to 180 or 200. You know what? I actually put, I was using the Freestyle Libre sensor. I had a few spares. At the time, it wasn't covered in the UK. Obviously, it's all covered. Currently, it is covered. But at the time, a few years ago, it wasn't covered. So I was purchasing. So I had a few spares at home. I put one on my mom. My mom was 80 at the time. She was 80. She's 79, 80. She's not diabetic. In fact, she's on no medication. She has no metabolic syndrome, nothing, none of it. So she's pretty healthy. She's probably the healthiest 80-year-old I've ever seen.
Amazing.
Right. So she had, obviously, we sat down for breakfast, eggs, and I was having some cucumbers or whatever, olives and that sort of stuff. And so she had a slice of bread, small slice. she does portion control. That's what she does, right? Portion control. So she ate that with some cheese or whatever it was, and then followed by a whole green apple. Her blood sugar rose to 6.3, which is, I need to check that. So something just close to 6, right?
Yeah.
Close to 6. And then within 30 minutes, it was back down again to 5.3, which is 95. So when people say, oh, non-diabetics all have higher blood sugars. No, I didn't see that with my mom. She was eating the carbs, obviously whole food, limited portions of carbs. But still for an 80-year-old, I didn't see her 200 or 180 for that matter. And then when people say, oh, that's a pretty normal range, between 70 and 180, why didn't my mom, she was eating carbs. Why didn't she ever hit, not even once, during the 14-day period, not once.
Yeah.
That's impressive. So
very impressive. And I think one of the things people miss about that, and we know this from the DCCT trials, that when you get blood sugars at 126 or higher and they stay elevated, that's where the diabetic complications come in. That's where the damage to the glycocalyx happens in, those tiny little blood vessels that are so critical. And we know the damage happens. So yes, we're going to see a normal fluctuation, and there is a normal rise, but when it goes up more than 30 points and stays up for more than an hour and a half, 2 hours, that's when you know something's wrong. And that's where the damage comes in. And a normal, healthy person who's very insulin sensitive, you should see a reaction, but it should come right back down, like you said. And that's normal, that's healthy, that's fine. But when it stays high and stays elevated, that's where the problem lies. And that's where those CGMs come in again. But you can finger sticks too. We do that. If my client doesn't have access to a CGM, we test before they eat at 30 minutes and again at an hour and at 90 minutes. And then we can see, are you coming back down within that time range? And if somebody wants to try a food they haven't tried for a while, after they've been low carb for a while, test your blood sugars, see what it does to you, see how you react to it. Can your body handle it at this point? And it's a very good teaching tool.
It's not for herself only, but for me as well, to actually watch her blood sugars over 14 days. That was incredible. And, I was just about to say, well, I remember the first time I saw her blood sugar rising and it then stopped at 125. And then I was just about to tell her, Mom, see, you should not be having, you had the bread. You shouldn't have been having the apple. But I had to bite my words because within 30 minutes, she was back to baseline. And that to me is a sign of good health, right?
Absolutely. That means your insulin sensitivity is sensitive. That means everything's working as it should. Yeah. And it's rare because only I think it's less than 12% of people here in the United States are metabolically healthy these days, which is really sad. So the majority of people are insulin resistant and running around with high blood sugars all the time.
And this is exactly why we shouldn't compare. We shouldn't bring in, the masses as an example. Hey, my non-diabetic friend also hit 200 after his lunch. Well, just because he's not yet diagnosed with type 2 diabetes doesn't mean that he's in optimal health. I think we need to put that
how long happen and how long does he stay up there? Yeah.
Right. Gina, if someone wants to contact you, what do they do? How do they use your services?
So I have a website. It's ginarobertsmhp.com. And my email is ginarobertsmhp@gmail.com. You can also find me through Dr. Bickman's Insulin IQ website. I'm a coach there. And those are probably the primary ways you can find me. I'm also listed through Nutrition Network and a few others places. Low Carb USA, I'm listed there, but the quickest way is direct email if you want.
I'll put all your details below as well in the description.
Okay.
Gina, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Oh, do you know what? Before I let you go, we have to tell people, we have to give people the reassurance that it's okay to eat a keto diet or to adopt a ketogenic diet. Doesn't need to be a massively high fat, but just lower carb, perhaps a good amount of protein, even moderate protein works, for most people. But keto diet does not mean
Diabetic
ketosis.
They are
people are
terrified
of that. So let's end this kind of meeting with giving people the reassurance that nutritional ketosis is completely different from ketoacidosis.
A lot of people, when they wake up first thing in the morning after not having eaten all night, your body will be burning fat because you've been fasting overnight and you'll have a few ketones. That's natural nutritional ketosis. Babies are born in ketosis most often. And it's a healthy thing. It's an energy that's good for your brain. They've shown it's good for your heart, for your organs, for your gut, for mental health. And we talked nutritionally, ketosis is a range from like 0.3 up to 3 millimolars. When you get up to 6, that gets into starvation ketones. We try and stay away from that. And DKA is clear on the other side of this at 10 or higher. And it's completely opposite ends of the spectrum. So very different, not even the same thing. And I still run into doctors who don't know. And so I make sure I keep the literature with me on my phone so I can share it. And they're like, yeah, we didn't learn that in medical school, which is, but yeah, nutritional ketosis has a lot of benefits. And it's one of the most researched things right now. And if you go into PubMed and, Google Scholar on that, you can find hundreds and hundreds of new articles on, ketosis and the benefits of it. We're learning a lot.
We've come a long way. We really have. We've still got a long way to go, but we have created this change.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to see. When I first started, I couldn't access any resource. I just didn't know anyone else who was doing this.
And the only information I got was from a dietitian who told me if I had a ketone, I'd die. So don't burn fat. And I had to lose weight. How am I going to lose weight and not burn fat? I panicked. Had no idea. And they didn't ever tell me anything about natural, normal, nutritional ketosis. That was eye-opening. Yeah.
They didn't know. They didn't want to know.
I think they were taught it, and they don't want to know.
They were talking about ketoacidosis, not necessarily ketosis. I think, that's where their education fails our practitioners. They all know what a ketone is, so they associate it with DKA because they've covered that. They've studied about DKA and the dangers of DKA, which obviously is fair because it is a potentially fatal condition.
But you have, if you have insulin on board, and it's adequate, and you're eating well, and you're drinking plenty of fluids, you're not going to be at risk. And it's very, I've been there. When I was first diagnosed, when I went through all that, I was in DKA. And I know how serious it can be. But nutritional ketosis is a very different thing. Yeah.
With that beautiful message, we're going to end this talk. Once again, thank you so much, Gina Roberts, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Nayiri.
Bye.